And it says we are live. The show will begin very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Today, I'm joined by Sam Dodson. Some might know him as Green Eggs and Sam. He's from the YouTube channel To The Lifeboats and very XRP Ripple driven, not just Ripple and XRP though. And he comes very highly recommended by several people, several friends, including Ken Bozak. So we're going to start the show here in just moments. Just want to make sure that we are good to go with our live stream. And I think we are. Just want to double check, and we're going to get started here in just a moment. So bear with us. Make sure you smash that like button. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I thank everybody for tuning in for this very special live edition of the Rise Crypto Show. And as I mentioned, I am joined by Sam Dodson. He is the host of To The Lifeboats YouTube channel, and he comes highly recommended. I wanted to learn a little bit more about XRP and Ripple because I've made some appearances on several different channels and have been very outspoken about some things in regards to XRP and Ripple. And I actually might have been wrong on some things. I might have been right on some things, but I might have been wrong. And I can admit when I'm wrong. And I would like for other people to start doing those kind of things, admit when you're wrong. And not only that, but always be open-minded. And because especially when it comes to technology, I really feel like there's going to be something else that's going to surpass all these technologies that are here. And that's how technology works. It develops, it grows, and becomes better. And I think that's what we're all working towards. And with that being said, I am joined by Sam Dodson. Sam, man, thanks for coming on the show today. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate your time, man. I really do. And again, you come very highly recommended. Ken Bozak, I had to talk to him when he recommended you because I'm really confused by this whole thing. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Mandela effect.
I'm not,
but it's the idea that you believe something to be one way and in reality it's another way. And we'll use like movies as an example. Some people think that certain things are said in movies or characters look a certain way. Okay. And some people say that we may be jumping multiverses or parallel universes. And I feel like we might have shifted into like Earth number 54, and there might be more reality to Rick and Morty than there is to our actual reality. Because I'm like, I know that Ripple as a company is centralized, but I'm starting to learn that I might have been mistaken about XRP as a cryptocurrency and that it actually might be one of the more decentralized cryptocurrencies. And in so,
ways, yeah. In other ways, no, but people tend to talk about decentralization as this binary thing, and it's really not. There's a lot of different aspects to consider when it comes to Bitcoin or XRP.
No, I agree. And I think that there's definitely pros and cons. I got to shout out Lady D in the house and everybody who's watching. Lady D, I got your package. Thank you so much. Cool. And definitely, if you guys are enjoying this video, please thumbs up, share, make sure you're getting it out, because this is going to be an education lesson, not only for myself, but I hope other people. So I'm going to kind of let you, I want to ask questions, but I want to let you kind of take me to school here. So Ripple is a centralized company. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably one of the first things that we could kind of level set on is you have two distinct entities, right? You have Ripple, the company. They're a corporation. And you know, I don't work for Ripple. I'm just an XRP holder who's studied them quite a bit over the last 3 years. But they are probably working towards becoming a publicly traded company. They've made comments to that effect. But before Ripple existed, XRP was actually created, and the XRP ledger. So the XRP ledger is a decentralized, permissionless, trustless, immutable blockchain. It doesn't use the terminology blockchain. It uses the term ledgers. And there's a slight difference there with Bitcoin. You have the UTXO model, where if you want to get to the current state of the network, you start at the first block and play your way all the way through. With the XRP ledger, every ledger close every 3 seconds has the entire state of the network. Every account and every balance is accounted for in the header of each ledger close. So you don't, it means the block size or the ledger closes are bigger and it's moving more data around, but it also means you don't have to keep all of the history. Now, there were some Bitcoin.
Real quick, man, because I was kind of rude before I meant to get into it. I wanted, I guess, to kind of get a little bit of background about you, because I think you're involved like in a Free State project, if I'm not mistaken, and
years ago, yeah. So I was in corporate America, worked in telecom with a lot of AT&T, Sprint, Verizon type companies. And I left that, went and did some activism for a couple of years up in New Hampshire, joined the Free State Project. There's some videos out there from that. Got arrested, went on a hunger strike, all kinds of stuff. Got pushed out of jail in my jail clothes because I refused to change, and on and on. But anyway, and then, I went back and did some farming for a while. I had known about crypto in the, sub $2 days. And Roger Ver actually sent me my first Bitcoin over Facebook when it was about, along with 50 other people, when it was about $11 or so.
Okay.
And I've, used it off and on for, I'm sure you can figure out what. I kind of never really invested a lot of money in it. And then some friends grabbed me and they're like, hey, we want you to, from that kind of world, said, hey, we want you to learn about XRP and Monero. Brought me into their group. I kind of watched it for a few months, and their hope was that I would eventually start making videos, which is what happened. They didn't tell me any of that, but so here I am now talking about XRP and crypto and that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that you kind of is it because I saw your Facebook page. Does it say abolitionist? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah. So, I use the term anarchist. A lot of people think that's Antifa and wearing black and throwing rocks through windows. That's not an anarchist. So some people will use the term voluntarist. I really see it as an abolitionist because, there's Stefan Molyneux. I don't know if you know who he is, but he did this, the story of your enslavement, and talks about how we're really the livestock and government are the modern day plantation owners. And at some point, that system is going to come down, and I think crypto is going to play a big role in that. I mean, you think about the long-term implications of what's happening right now. We have people realizing that the fiat money system is just sucking their value away as they inflate and spend more and more, and there's no check on that. There's nothing, Democrats, Republicans, they both want to spend more money and grow the government and take away more of our freedom and control over our own lives. And then here comes crypto, sound money, all the things that money should be. And we're at the same time getting all of these bridges built between the fiat world and the crypto world. And when you can instantaneously move value between the two, why is anybody going to store their wealth in fiat? They're not. And when that happens, what happens to the demand for fiat? It plummets. And then what are the implications of that? Well, they can't go and just print it because the implications of that are much more immediate, meaning they're going to print a bunch of money that nobody wants, and it immediately starts to inflate versus today where we have this long delayed reaction. And so I think in the long term, it's really going to change. Governments will look nothing like what they do today. They won't be able to wage these endless wars. They won't be able to grow and just continue doing all the things that they're doing. And I think that's really important. I think that's the bigger picture of what's happening beyond, hey, we're going to the moon kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's why I like crypto and the space. And it ties very much in line with my beliefs as a Quaker, as an abolitionist, as a voluntarist, as an anarchist, whatever label you want to use.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to bring that up, because I do identify as an anarchist. I've been defending it a lot lately, and I've just been trying to just let people know it's the opposite.
Into the wind a lot of days, with the term, because it's just been so bastardized by the media.
Yeah, so I'm just slowly phasing it out. I just call myself a voluntarist, but I do like the abolitionist title. I think that's a pretty interesting way of looking at the situation, but I never would have thought that anarchy and XRP and Ripple would have been combined in this. So that's what kind of blows my mind, and that's why I really appreciate your time specifically. Sure. So now I guess we'll get right into like some of my curiosity and where I may have been wrong with some things.
Okay.
So when it comes to the XRP blockchain, is it a blockchain or is it?
Oh, I just lost your sound.
Is it? Am I there now?
You said, is it a blockchain or is it
a blockchain or like a hyperledger?
So it's I would put it more in the camp of a traditional blockchain. The terminology is different. So in the Bitcoin world, we have blocks. In the XRP world, we have ledgers. The ledgers are immutable. They're trustless. They're, the nodes can keep the history if they want, just like with Bitcoin, but they contain all the transactions, not just the current ones that are being processed and incorporated into the chain, if that makes sense.
Okay. It does. Now, with that being said, is there a mining process? I mean, there's no mining process because it looks like there's validator nodes. And so with that being said, is it 100% pre-mined?
It is. And there's no mechanism that I'm aware of to even create more XRP. Like they created them, and I don't know all the details on this, but they created them, launched the XRP ledger, and you had these early Fort Knox accounts that had the 100 billion in it, and then they've been distributed from there. And there's, the founders got, I think it was 20 billion, somewhere around there. Ripple's holds about 48, 50 billion right now, and then the rest has been distributed out.
Okay. I mean, I would imagine that if the community or somebody came together, they could come to some consensus to change the code or something to that effect that they wanted to. And that's kind of where I got things wrong. And maybe I'm even mistaken with saying that, but I know one of the things that I said incorrectly was that XRP didn't have a max supply. And is it 1 billion, if I'm not mistaken?
100 billion.
100 billion. Okay. So I was completely mistaken when I said that. And that's the thing that people need to, own up to when they say something that might be untrue and they figure out information that shows that you're wrong. You need to say that publicly. I think it's an important thing.
Theoretically, if you wanted to change that, I guess you could, if all the validators wanted to add more supply, but I think the same could be said of Bitcoin or any crypto project. If you get 100% of the community to agree, it's just code, right?
Well, that's why there's been so much split with the Bitcoin community and Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV because of disagreements and it being a small selective few people get to choose. I mean, Ethereum was born out of the fact that Bitcoin Core decided they didn't like Vitalik's ideas and his proposals. I mean, had they done that, we'd be in a different place today, probably.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting when you think about the history of stuff. And I mean, I came into the space and I looked into XRP and Ripple, but I didn't put a lot of attention into it because a lot of people who I looked up to were just calling it a centralized piece of crap, blah, 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 and going into all this negativity. And I wasn't separating the two.
Right. So, like that was my same objection when I was brought into it's called Anarcrypt version 2, Lambo's with more Lambos, hookers, and blow. That's the Facebook group that they brought me in to tell me about all this stuff. And they were talking XRP, and I, looked into it. I'm like, what are a bunch of anarchists doing here advocating for this banker's coin, right? And I had a interaction with somebody that was coming in, kind of really making that point, like after the banker's coin kind of thing. I'm a principled anarchist, damn it. And this guy's like, look, man, 5 years down the road, you'll still have your principles, but we'll have the resources and our principles to do something about it and to bring about change. So that's kind of how I look at it and how I talk to my audience about it. It's coming either way. Like, they're not going to, us not investing in Ripple and XRP is not going to change what they're doing and what they are rolling out globally. They have been out there working with the banks for 5 years. They've been working with the central banks. They've been working with, the mom and pop credit unions, and it just all up payment processors, money transmitters across the board, across the industry. They've been working with them for, going on 5 years, a lot of these guys. And I don't think the banks are just going to jump into bed with the latest crypto and the flashiest features. They want somebody that they can trust, that's actually doing something for them, that's handling their privacy as well. That's one of the reasons, RippleNet, the proprietary software, runs on top of the XRP ledger. It utilizes it for some functions. It doesn't have to. It can do it all through messaging if they have what are called Nostro and Vostro accounts set up, where they're pre-funding, sending money ahead of time to draw down on when customers want to send money to a given country. But that's slow, that's expensive, it's costly to maintain. You've got capital parked all around the world, and Ripple eliminates that. So I think it's one of the few projects out there that actually has a real world use case, and it's not a weak one either. I mean, it's something, it will change the way money moves around the planet. And I think a lot of people also get stuck on this idea of Ripple's the only use case for the XRPL, or for XRP, the token, or digital asset, as they like to call it. That's one use case, and it's a big one, removing friction from cross-border payments. But they're also doing stuff with the interledger protocol. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. They're doing, micro payments. So my YouTube videos, I should have told you about Coil. You can sign up for Coil, monetize your YouTube channel, so that when Coil subscribers come and watch it, you're getting payments streamed to you. And with Uphold and their, oh gosh, I'm missing the term for it, but their basically endpoint, I can take whatever's being streamed, I think it's XRP that's coming in, and I can deposit it in an Ethereum wallet, a Bitcoin wallet, an XRP wallet, any of the coins that they have. And it does that all behind the scenes. And I just see, oh, you got another interledger payment. You have Flare, which I just did a video on. They've created a separate XRP ledger. They basically kind of cloned it and then made some changes to it. And they're doing a token issuance that they're going to give 1-to-1 Flare tokens to XRP holders, excluding Ripple. And they're creating a DEX. They're creating, basically, they've created a trustless system for smart contracts. They've incorporated the Ethereum virtual machine. You're going to have the ability to do like wrapped XRP, kind of like you do in DeFi today. You'll be able to trade tokens and so forth. But I think what they're really going after is more of the derivatives, futures, that type of market. And I think it's, it may take longer for all this stuff to go on. And people are really excited about DeFi and Uniswap and Band and this and that and the other one. I think they're solving an immediate problem, but I don't think they're doing it in a way that will scale for commercial mainstream adoption. And that's something I think that has been true from the beginning. I mean, early days, the rallying cry was Bitcoin's going to replace the banks. And now it's like the banks are adopting Bitcoin. Yeah, go Bitcoin. It's like, wait a minute, what happened here? I thought you guys were going to replace the banks, and now you're cheering custody in the banks. What? So, it's just, they've all run into problems. And I think the biggest one is proof of work. And that's something that sets, XRP. What are some of the others? Hedera, the XX network that's coming out, Stellar. I don't know enough about, Cardano yet to know exactly how they're doing things, but I think there are better models that are coming out today, and they are creating the capability for scaling and real scaling, not like Lightning Network, which is dead after 100,000 or so users. So,
well, I mean, everything you're saying to me is kind of blowing me away. And real quick, I want to talk and see again the people who are watching. Tell me if I still sound deeper, because I don't know if I've got a short in this mic, in this cord right here, because it ends up sounding like what I was telling you before we started, like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. So I don't know if is this the same as when we started?
Yeah.
It is. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe my computer is also on its last leg, and this might be me having to get a new computer. So it sucks, man. I do apologize for my voice now, if it is still bad, but if somebody can let me know in the chat, I'd appreciate it. And so what I was understanding was Ripple was trying to create a remittance service that would like a global payment system that would ultimately replace the SWIFT system. Would that be correct? And then XRP is the payment mechanism within that centralized platform.
Yes and no. And it's kind of, some days they'll say, yeah, we're going to replace SWIFT. Some days it's not quite that clear. So SWIFT is more of a messaging system, and you can think of it like email that uses FTP nightly to send your email messages. It's really that outdated and that bad. Ripple came along and started off with the banks saying, here's some crypto, some XRP. You can use it for remittances, and they trialed their system, and the banks came out of that and said, yeah, we can't even touch that. We can't hold it. Regulations prevent us from holding it. That's not going to work. So then they went back to the drawing board and they said, okay, what do we do to get our foot in the door? And they were interested, I think, in partnering with Swift, and letting them do the messaging and Ripple do the settlement. Swift instead went to a Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam in 2014, talked to a guy named Bob Way for like 2 hours one day and then another 2 hours the next day, and then went back and came up with something called GPI, which basically ripped off what Ripple had done. And so now they have this competing product, but it still doesn't solve the fundamental problem of parking money all around the world in those correspondent banks that we mentioned earlier. So I think as you get more and more customers moving, more and more banks and FIs moving on to RippleNet, that eventually it's just going to become the de facto standard. But I think in the short term, what we're going to see is some interoperability. And there's this Swiss route product that they came up with that integrates both Swift and RippleNet. And I think they're just going to have the logic that sits on top of that to say which one's cheaper, which one can get me, the better, faster settlement, whatever the priority is for that bank. And they're going to use one or the other. And I think where RippleNet's available, hands down, it's going to be faster and cheaper than Swift. So I see it kind of going that route. Temenos is another big provider that has lots of banks that use its Swift service, and they've done the same thing. So I think that's what we'll see, is some kind of hybrid environment for a while through the transition. And I think RippleNet or something like it will win the day down the road.
Well, I mean, that's really interesting. And I see that you cover some things in regards to Chainlink as well. And if I'm not mistaken, were they not working with Swift and trying to replace the system with smart contracts?
So that's part of the problem is what Chainlink did, and why I did that video. They went to some kind of like hackathon type competition and they won. And then they came back and reported that as, we're partnered with Swift, y'all. And they're not, or they weren't at the time. I don't know about now. And they did the same thing with Google. There was an article written by one of the Google devs who I believe was a Chainlink holder that basically said, hey, you could use Chainlink to do this on Google Cloud. And it was the same thing. There was no real partnership there, but that's how it was kind of touted to their audience to pump the price. At the same time, you've got founders, you've got accounts linked to the devs who are moving money into Binance and other markets to sell and, you know, do classic pump and dump stuff.
Yeah.
It looks like it could be north of $100 million. They're not disclosing any of this. And it's the gas fees that link it all together. It's just like, come on, guys. So
that's dirty.
Yeah, that's my objection to the project. Not that it can't go crazy as it has in this environment, but it's just, there's a lot of shady things going on.
Well, Sam, I think I had got my microphone fixed. I'm not 100% sure, but my homie Bruce, my cousin, my 27th time removed cousin, he says it sounds a lot better. So hopefully it's just that's mic cord right now. But dude, I'm finding all this really fascinating. So when you had mentioned things about creating assets and things, were you talking about the XRP blockchain, or were you talking about the clone blockchain? That Flare?
You both, yeah. Let's start with the XRP ledger first.
And what about NFTs too? Then can you create NFTs?
If you
could do smart
contracts. So
okay.
At least on the XRP ledger, you might be able to do something like that with Flare down the road. XRP ledger, you can do something called an issuance. So you had Jed McCaleb, who came up with the idea for consensus. You had a guy named Ryan Fugger, who came up with the idea for something that he called Rippled, which was I can issue you digital gold tokens, and you can send me XRP or some other asset that I want to accept, and then I will hold gold in reserve and give you these digital tokens, and you can trade those with other people. And you set up something called a trust line, and you say, Sam, I want to trust you for up to $100 in your digital gold tokens. Okay. So you can do that. You have gateways on the XRP ledger that kind of do that bridging. And there are some exchanges out there where you can hold Bitcoin on the XRP ledger, or Ethereum, or currencies and that sort of thing. So that's what we call an issuance on the XRP ledger, and that's certainly one option. When you get to the Flare side, what they've done is set up a way to do trustless wrapped XRP or wrapped Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. You have these agents who hold the Spark token, and they will basically, through the smart contract code and that sort of thing, you deposit into a specific account XRP on the XRP ledger with a transaction number that corresponds to the Spark network. The Spark network reads that in and then will give you the equivalent Spark. The agent has to hold 2.5 times reserve to back up the FXRP that they're issuing. So in that sense, you can do issuances there. The first one's going to be XRP, but obviously they're going to add others, which will, eventually create a DEX where you can trade not just ERC20 tokens, but any crypto. And there's a couple other projects out there doing that, but it's also, because they're bringing in the EVM, anything that's running on Ethereum today could just as easily be ported over to XRP. And if you look at even some of the Bitcoin maximalists talk about trading into XRP when they need to move it to another exchange so they can get the lower fee and the faster transaction time and then move it out. I think we could see the same kind of thing happen with some of these smart contracts. Why use something like Bitcoin with the high fee. And of course, some people are going to say, well, we'll use wrap Bitcoin. Yeah, that's another option. But I think XRP is going to have some tremendous utility when it comes to Flare.
Well, I mean, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. I mean, I'm blown away by all this. I mean, because I had no clue because of me being so close-minded, thinking that, you know, the whole thing is centralized and it's working within the bank system, which is like what I'm thinking I don't want anything to do with.
Yeah.
On the flip side, though, I'm also thinking like all this stuff sounds very much kind of like just transferring the old system into a newer system. Like, how is this beneficial for the everyday person, aside from maybe riding gains because of use case and utility between the central banks and various banking systems?
Okay. Let me give you a big picture and then we'll drill in a little bit. So,
okay,
the Bitcoiners from the beginning were going to replace the banks, and then they decided, no, not so much these days.
Well, they decided to sell out to the whole system with like people like Blockstream, Adam Back, and all the whole core developers. You know, they seemed, if you look at who invests in Blockstream, as negatively as I would talk about Ripple and XRP, as much as I love the idea of what Satoshi wanted to create, Bitcoin is definitely very tainted. Mm-hmm. I don't think any other coin is the real Bitcoin. Bitcoin is Bitcoin, but it's definitely been throttled and kept limited on purpose. And that's been so that people.
Oh, we just lost you.
I know I just popped out. Am I back in?
Yep, you're good.
This is crazy, man. I really apologize. I wanted to really get this thing fixed. But yeah, it's with all that being said, I mean, it's blowing me away.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the fact that it's pre-mined. There's some things that I don't like, but yeah, let's kind of talk about the use case stuff. How you were talking.
Well, so let me just continue on real quick. So initially it was, we're going to replace the banks. Now we're in this DeFi thing where you've got all these people excited saying this is going to replace traditional finance in 5 years. And it's already done 10X when it does 10X again and then 10X again. And I'm like, yeah, I don't see it happening that way. What I see happening is people being brought on board through the traditional channels that they're in today. I mean, we're still talking about cryptocurrency, reaching less than 5, maybe 10% of the market that's out there. And so I think that's the transition path. And I think once people get comfortable with digital wallets, they'll continue to venture out from there, and then they'll find self-custody and the reasons that they should be doing that. I'm just cracking up watching you. So like, I see
I can hear you. I can hear you completely. I'm just trying to fix this.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. That's the path I see it taking. And how does the end user benefit? They benefit by what we talked about earlier, being able to move wealth seamlessly between crypto and fiat, the old traditional rails. And when they can start storing their wealth in crypto and it's not losing money, and the consequences that will have for fiat and the governments that require the fiat system so that they can inflate it and steal the value, that there's going to be a day of reckoning. So as an anarchist, I'd love to see everybody go pure crypto and the whole thing crumble and fall apart. And it's, it's crypto or nothing. But as a realist, I don't think that's the path it's going to take.
My mic. Okay, there we go. It's every time I try to fix it, it wants to mute itself on this end. I had to make sure it's good. But I think I don't hear no popping in my earbuds, so I think I might actually have just to shorten this wire.
Yeah.
I need to replace this wire. So I've got it setting where it shouldn't be. It was hanging, so maybe that was causing a little bit of an issue. So now I got it sitting on my desk. So again, I apologize. I mean, this is definitely, I think, a very valuable conversation, and I appreciate what you're schooling me on, because and that's another point that I want to bring up, even to myself for future reference. Like, I was really, really close-minded because of what I thought, and I completely dismissed anything. And I'm not necessarily saying that I'm going to come out and be the biggest XRP shill.
Yeah.
I may, I'm not saying I'm going to start dedicating my channel to XRP, but I think it's very interesting what I've been learning over the past couple of days. I got trolled really hard by all the lovely people in the XRP community and Ripple community, and called an idiot and all these things. And I knew I was right about some things, and I knew that. There it goes. I could hear it do it again. Am I still sounding all right?
Yeah, you sound all right.
It's something's dropping out on my end. It might be a combination of the speaker and my computer dying, but I've learned so much. But at the same time, like, you got half the people who just want to be really cruel, and then you got people who want to say, maybe you should talk to so-and-so, and your name kept coming up. So then I made that little tweet and I put it on Facebook, kind of a message to Ripple and XRP in the community. And I messaged Ripple on Twitter. I messaged David Schwartz. I tweeted to Brad Garlinghouse, and I would still like opportunities to talk to those guys. But as far as anybody said, you were definitely the man to talk to. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm learning this from a fellow anarchist. And again, I'm just like, what happened, man? I woke up on Earth 54. I want to go back to the Earth that I was on before the day previous. It's just.
Let's talk about Preline, because I think that's something that will shift you a little bit as well.
We'll talk about what again?
The pre-mine and the whole fact that Ripple's had the whole 100 billion, or Open Labs had the whole 100 billion and then distributed most of that to Ripple. So they've sold, I think it's $1.5 billion worth of XRP, and the haters love to point that out and this and that. They still hold 50, I think it's about 56 billion right now.
What's the percentage of that?
56%.
Okay, because that was the thing I said, that they held 60% of the supply of their coins.
Yeah, so they've been distributing it, but they kind of slowed it down. So they've made, I think it's close to $1 billion from all of their XRP sales. It might be a little more than that. And that's something the haters love to point out. But what they failed to ask is, well, what did they do with that $1 billion? It wasn't, hookers and blow. They took 600 million of it and reinvested into various partnerships and companies. So Flare is one of those. Coil is another one, which is doing the micropayments. And, I'll send you a message about setting up your Coil account, and you can get.
I think I have a Coil account. I just wasn't very active because of the fact that I was going to be earning XRP, but now I might start being active on it.
Mostly XRP subscribers. So anytime you mention XRP, you'll get some. And there's some cross pollination and stuff going on. But what they're doing, they're working with a number of different companies, from wallet manufacturers, browser manufacturers. Cinnamon Video is another one that's where I lock my videos and only Coil subscribers can see them. There's, oh my God, they wrote the Interledger protocol, handed it off to the W3C, the standards body, to get that widely adopted. So they did a $100 million grant for the web, where they're giving out $100 million for building like tools to integrate web monetization and help bring it about, as well as I think about 1/3 of it is for that, and 2/3 of it is for content creators to be able to experiment and work out some web monetization strategies that work for them. So they put their money where their mouth is. They've sold a bunch of XRP, and then they turned around and reinvested it. And the other point I think that's certainly valid to realize when you talk about Ripple holding this massive supply of XRP is they're one of the most interested parties in seeing the price appreciate, right? Because it's going to make them a whole lot of money. People tend to think of it the other way, as, oh, they're going to dump and this and that. Well, they're building business after business after business that they have investments in ensuring the success of the XRP ledger and the XRP ecosystem. And so I would look at it from that perspective. They want to see the price rise more than anybody else. and they had the resources to help bring that about, and they've been putting those into play for the last several years.
Well, I do know that they were donating money to nonprofits. Ashton Kutcher went on the Ellen show with Ellen DeGeneres, and they donated a lot of money towards foundations and stuff. So I mean, I did, even when I was hating on Ripple as a centralized company and supporting the banks and all that, I still had to give a lot of kudos for doing that, because it's always good when you can give back and try to better some sort of situation. I just think it shows good things, and it was definitely, I think, good PR for the cryptocurrency community as a whole.
Yeah.
And you're seeing a lot of charity oriented stuff going on. Binance has their charity and things, so it's nice to see that. And I had to definitely give them their props on that. Now, I don't know if this is like, I'd like to kind of get a better understanding about the validator nodes, because the website says there's 36 validator nodes, which Ripple runs 6, which is 16%.
Oh, I just lost you.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Sorry. Back. Something saying that it's distributed and that it has 150 plus validators globally.
Okay.
Why on the same website, on the same page? It's very conflicting information.
The way it works, you have nodes which order the transactions and feed them to the validators. You have validators who come to consensus on what transactions are A, valid, and B, included in the next block. And any that get rejected in this voting process that they do are set up to go into the next block, right? Anybody can run a validator. Anybody can run a node. It's open source. You can go download the code, set your server up. But there's another layer on that, and it's very similar to what Stellar's doing, of what's called the UNL, the Universal Node List. Now, that's a lot of people point to that and say, aha, that's centralized because Ripple has their own UNL, but anybody can create a UNL. The validators can use any UNL they want. They can make changes to the UNL. You don't have to have 100% agreement on what other validators a given validator listens to. I think it has to be, I forget if it's 80% or 60% agreement roughly, but beyond that, it starts to kind of break down. So there are 200 validators out there running today. There are the 38, I think, is from the UNL that Ripple publishes. And so within that, there are universities, there's companies like Coil that are doing web monetization. You've got hobbyists that are in that list as well, that just, they've invested a lot of money in XRP. They want to ensure its success. You've got exchanges that are running validators. So the idea is you get a bunch of different industries, verticals that are running validators that have different interests, so that it's not all the banks or it's not all Ripple or this and that. There is like a threshold that is 80%. If you can get all the validators to agree to 80%, that's I think the highest threshold for changing something in the system. And because Ripple's not even holding that 20%, they're in that 16% now. They can't even, they basically lost the ability to veto changes to the XRP network. So it's much more in the community's hands, and they've held up some features for like a couple years. There's a checks one that Ripple wanted to put into place where you can almost like send an invoice over the XRP ledger. And that finally went through, but it was first published, I think, like 2 years ago, but the community wasn't, the validators weren't on board with it, and it never got published. So that's kind of how it works, and that's the idea behind it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What is the benefit to running a validator node? Are you rewarded? Like
the operator, no reward. So that's I agree with it, because the rewards are kind of a way to to pervert the incentives and to manipulate. It brings in just a lot of potential for misuse and misdirection and that sort of thing. So there's no reward, but it's also not like a miner. It's a little email server. We'd say Wen has a validator node that he runs, and the thing uses, I think it's less than 400 watts. It's a really small server. They don't have a whole lot of loading. The nodes, on the other hand, that are handling all the transaction input and feeding that on, they're doing a little bit more of the work. But I think the idea is, if you're MoneyGram and you're using XRapid, ODL to facilitate payments for your business, you would want to ensure the proper functioning and security of the network. So you'd spend $20K, $50K, whatever it is, to put in a server and host it and so forth, and run the network that way. And that's how it goes. I could see some objections to that, but so far it's working.
Okay. No, I mean, all this makes a lot of sense. And then, I would like to obviously do another conversation. Hopefully I won't have this issue with my microphone. But I want to kind of turn it around a little bit on some things that I would consider to be a little bit more speculative, because to me, unless you got something that I don't know, which you might, about the quantum financial system and the idea that Ripple XRP will be utilized to replace Swift. Because if we talk about a great reset or a global currency reset, you're going to have to get rid of the traditional legacy system and have a new system to replace it as well. And there's been a lot of talk about this and a lot of talk in the Q community. So now you don't not only have the normal XRP community and army, you also have now the QAnon people kind of jumping on board. Now, I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on what you know specifically about the quantum financial system and everything I just kind of touched on with Ripple and XRP.
Okay. Give me just a second here. Well, okay. I don't know if I can find it because I just moved computers, but we got these infograms or pictures, JPEG images that had a lot of things laid out on them back in March of 2018. And it talked about the quantum financial system. It talked about the dollar burning, but fiat's not going anywhere. It talked about gold backing of the fiat and XRP being used as the bridge. Talked about the quantum financial system, all of those things. Go ahead.
Where was this information coming from? The XRP Ripple community, or
no? It was somebody that showed up on Twitter with an account called Marvin Gaye, and posted these like clues that would lead to more clues that would lead to YouTube videos or various pictures on Imager, various things like that. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on.
Okay. No, it's really interesting because, obviously the Nicero thing, which might come into play as well with something like this, but that was written back in the late 80s. I interviewed G. Edward Griffin recently, and he had a chance to debate him back in the 90s. But it's apparently like different versions of all these different, because I'm hearing different things about what the quantum financial system would be. But from what I'm understanding with what I can find out is it would be all involving the IMF, the Federal Reserve, and pretty much every government being on board and okay in this.
All right. Can you see that?
Let's see here. Let me see if I got to add it to the stream.
Okay, there we go. Good deal.
Yeah, this is my second time using StreamYard. It's freaking awesome. I really love this platform. So it takes me a minute to figure out what I got to do, but yeah, it's so easy.
Okay,
I can see.
So this was one of them. Talks about here's the SWIFT system, transfer of system from west to east, meaning the U.S. and Britain to China, to the Eastern philosophy. HSBC is the conduit. Of course, look what's going on in Hong Kong, and they're cracking down like, hell no, we're not going to let you guys leave.
Right.
It talks about AIIB, which is the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. They do a lot of like road and bridge projects. It's a big consortium with a lot of banks from a lot of different countries, not just the Eastern countries. CHIPS is the settlement system for China, kind of like faster payments for the US, or the faster payments in Australia, or I forget the one for Europe, but basically, their last mile settlement system. Beginning of the quantum financial system, new, done before, by 2020. Gold-backed XRP, true liquidity as the real-time settlement. Okay. And so I think what this is showing is, I know you had Charlie on, and I disagree with him. He's talking about a gold-backed XRP.
Yeah, it's almost like you're reading my mind. I went on his show and decided to put that on my channel because it was only supposed to be about crypto, and we talked about it a little bit more, so that's why I included it on my channel. But that was one of the appearances that I made where I said that XRP didn't have a max supply, and I was wrong. But yeah, I was going to ask you about the gold back thing, because I'm like thinking I wouldn't think that they're backing their stuff by gold. They haven't done it so far. And
to me at all. And here's why. You have this asset XRP. Okay, you're going to back it with gold, but you've already distributed half of it. So whatever you're backing with, you're giving away half of that gold to the existing XRP holders that are not you, basically. So why would somebody do that? It makes no sense. I think what does make sense is that they're going to move to a gold-backed fiat. Now, it's probably not going to be a fixed rate, like a guaranteed thing where you can go into the bank and here's my $100, give me silver or gold, something like that. I think it'll be a fractional reserve, because that way they can inflate it over time and steal the wealth from people, just like they've done with the current paradigm. And what the quantum financial, I've got another source that's he talks about in the four walls that would be in that same category. And they describe the QFS as a system between the central banks that uses XRP as the bridge currency. And that's what this here on the bottom is talking about. Yeah, simple as that. So you have gold-backed fiat being traded between central banks using XRP as the bridge currency. See if I can find another one.
I wonder who this Marvin Gaye person group was, because it's pretty interesting to put this information. You said it was 2017?
2018, early 2018, I believe.
So right after the all-time highs?
Actually, no, it was early 2019. Here's another one that they released. You've got the QAnon stuff here. Trump's draining the swamp. And then up here, we've got Brexit being kind of the trigger that leads to a national emergency, which I think is pretty clear. That's Corona. You've got the Q stuff happening right here, which is, seems to be coming to a head with some of the indictments of the lawyers that prosecuted Trump's aides and so forth, and some of the things that are coming out. Notice this little Black Lives Matter fist right down here. What happened coming out of the Corona? We have Black Lives Matter. Could that be saying solidarity with BRICS and the BRICS nations? Yes. Could it also be an indication that this whole thing's been planned? And then we get to XRP being announced by Trump, and you've got these handshake deals between Putin and Xi. Down here, you've got peace between North and South Korea. Now, this came out before Trump became the first American president to visit North Korea when he crossed the 38th parallel. And these two went on a walk, and nobody even knows what they talked about. He had peace summits as well, I think a few weeks before in South Korea. And that was something the community followed. Yeah, BRICS has really been about getting out from under the SWIFT system and getting away from the dollar. And
Yeah, the dollar especially.
I think that's really what they're kind of showing here, is that we're moving to this system where fiat's backed by gold, XRP is the bridge, and we're getting pretty close to the end game. If this Brexit thing was supposed to happen like a year before, and it just delayed and delayed and delayed, and then boom.
It's like the end of December, like December 17th through the end of December.
What
something
happens
like
right after Morona? Here you go.
It's going to be
what are we in the middle of? The Q stuff is finally starting to bear some fruit. And of course, the BLM thing is a huge WTF is that doing there? So,
it's mind-blowing.
Kind of stuff I'm looking at going, wow, this is interesting. I mean, this person basically called all this stuff up here.
What is your thoughts on the whole QAnon movement?
I think there are some cheerleaders like X22 Dave. I watched his stuff for a while, but everything was, well, the Patriots are in control, and it was just too much cheerleading for me. I've listened to Praying Medic for a while. He's 100 times better at, these are the facts. This is probably what they're implicating. I did see something recently about Biden and Obama getting a plea deal from Barr, being given immunity basically. So if that's true, then a lot of this, I remain skeptical of Q. Like, it's clearly, I don't think it's something that should be ignored because it goes beyond just coincidence. At the same time, if draining the swamp means going after the people who attack Trump and, the Democrats basically, then meanwhile, he fills the swamp back with, swamp creatures from the Republican side. It's like, what did you
right?
really
It's switching of lesser to evil.
Yeah.
I've thought that for quite some time.
As an anarchist, I'm like, yeah, no, this isn't going to give us freedom, guys. So,
but I know that humanity is not really ready for, to live under an anarchist kind of world. I would imagine that would take the idea of everybody living underneath the golden rule, natural law. And I don't think that we're, as a species, ready for that yet. Sadly. I
mean, I've always seen it as the phase we're in. We have to elevate people's thinking because the world exists the way it does today as a result of the way people think it should exist. And until that changes, when their thinking changes, the world around them will change. It's inevitable.
Well, I mean, I've got to tell you, man, like you've definitely enlightened me, and I hope that other people who are watching this have learned something as well. I'm not saying that we have to wrap up this moment. I know your time is limited. But I mean, we definitely do need to kind of wrap up soon, but
okay.
I would like to bring you back on, discuss things more. For just a little bit, I'd like to kind of offer anybody who's watching, if anybody wants to ask any questions, I'll see if anything pops up.
Sure.
And see what happens with that. And I definitely encourage people, if you're not already familiar at all with To The Lifeboats and Sam's channel, I definitely encourage you to check it out. I got links down below. And I just have found this to be really enlightening. And I'm going to invade Ken's privacy here for a second, because when I posted the thing about to the XRP community and saying I'd like to talk to somebody, I gotta scroll up to where it's at here, but let's see here. He's a dude to talk to about XRP, and he says, I'm with David Gokhshtein on XRP lately, man. Banks ain't going away, they're going XRP. And he says, actually already have. I don't know, man. It was a good conversation.
That's funny. He hasn't told me any of this.
Yeah, no, he says, like, I thought it said it here. I think it might have been something that he said to me when I called him, because I called him before I messaged you back, because you messaged me on Twitter. But before I responded back, I called Ken and like, dude, like, what happened? Like, why are we having this conversation? Like, why am I doing, like, what's going on, man? Like, because this is really freaking me out. Because, like, I really was thinking, like, I was in the correct form of thinking. And, you know, here I am admitting to everybody I was mistaken, you know? Again, I'm not saying that I'm going to sit here and, like, turn into the biggest XRP lover.
Yeah.
But I did put my XRP address on the screen and in the comments down below. So if somebody wants to send me my first bit of XRP and fuel me, I'll definitely, I'm going to get involved.
You know, I think of it like, you know, Ron Paul, when he was running for president back in 2008, whatever it was, 6, the media made a big deal out of like a $500 donation that he got from some racist group. And he's like, "Are you going to return it, Dr. Paul?" And he's like, "No, I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to use it to promote liberty. And if they want to give me more money to promote liberty that goes against what they stand for, that's up to them." You know, so I look at Ripple the same way. It's coming. It's inevitable. The banks are not going away. You know, they have literally trillions of dollars flowing through their fingers every single day, and they make millions to billions of dollars off of that. Do you think they're just going to give that up without a fight? Absolutely not. So, and you know, today the argument is the same, in my mind at least, with DeFi. You've got the DeFi guys just going off the deep end, and that's what we're seeing, all these crazy run-ups in DeFi because, oh, it's gonna replace next month. I mean, it's clearly, and it's like, guys, no, it's not. No, it's not.
The whole
they'll come in and watch it. They will, and you know, eventually, you're right. Eventually, it's going to replace it, and people will move away. But just like with anarchy, the mindset is not there. The technology is not there. It's not easy enough for my mom to do. You know, she can barely do Uphold. So,
hey, quick question, and this comes from Lee Dickey, who's a fellow North Carolinian. He says, "Is Sam an XRP maximalist? And if not, or I guess not, if not, I'm adding to it." He says, "What are your top 5 coins?"
So,
are you an XRP maxi? Because I would keep getting.
I mean, I don't. It's my largest holding. I think it has the best long-term potential of anything out there. I'm not against other cryptos. So I think XRP is critically important with the transition that we're going through. And then I think the other side of that is privacy, is a solid privacy coin. And the only one that really does that today, in my opinion, is Monero. There's another project called the XX network that David Charum, is behind. They're in beta, but in my mind, that's the equivalent of going from Bitcoin to XRP in terms of performance and consensus and everything that it does. But that's the equivalent of moving from Monero to the XX coin. I think that is going to be a huge project, and that is critically important. I mean, if you look at what's going on with, trying to think of the actual project, but there's somebody out there that is bridging Bitcoin and Monero. So now you can come in and wash your Bitcoin through Monero, and nobody knows who owns it anymore.
Oh, like a mixer blender, but using
centralized exchange. Yeah, that.
Yeah, I love Monero as well, and you've got really good value. That's why it's really interesting to hear and learn that XRP is included in the equation. I mean, but you explain it very logically.
Cool. And you know, and I hold some Cardano because I think what they're doing could end up being, you know, along the same lines of Ripple, but more in the less regulated kind of gray market space.
Okay.
I mean, there's probably 20 different projects that Casino Coin's another one. I place a small bet, let it ride kind of thing. VeChain, same thing.
Okay. You know, so you're not an XRP maximalist?
Not really. I mean, I think I probably was for a long time. But then I realized this thing may just drag on for I don't know how long. I'm willing to wait, but at the same time, I don't want to miss the opportunities that are in front of us.
That's a good point. And speaking of Cardano ADA, I was supposed to do an interview with Charles Hoskinson a couple weeks ago, and some things happened on my end, and I'm trying to get that rescheduled. He's a really cool dude.
He
and
is. I like.
I'd like to get a better understanding. And I don't know if you've seen, like, over the just past couple months, he's been doing these random live streams that have been like very revolutionary, like very good, like, because that was the thing. Like, we're having a conversation which reminds me of the early days of Bitcoin, where a lot of the people who were libertarian wanting to get away and replace the banking system, it's now they have become that which they hated, because all the Ethereum people, they're creating CBDCs. They got the ERC 1404 token, which is basically a SEC baby.
I haven't even done much of a deep dive into the technology and how it works, but I've seen the way that he talks about it, and I understand that's a voluntarist who's building something for humanity, not for industry, right? And I think long term, if he's able to deliver on his promises, it's going to do very well. And
well,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I would love to see you two have a conversation as well. So, I mean, if I can make it happen, I'll definitely like to link it up.
About ILP, and he's got a kind of a competing thing going on with ILP, and I want to see kind of where that sits in his mind and get his opinion on. Yeah, I've thought about reaching out to him. I haven't done it yet, but.
Well, since you've graced me with the pleasure of coming on my show and really taking your time to educate me and everyone else and enlighten me as far as some things that I obviously didn't know, and I just can't stress enough right now, like at the end of this broadcast, that you always have to be open-minded.
Yes.
Just because you have learned something a certain way doesn't mean that it's always true. And I tell people to use critical thinking, think for themselves. And in a way, I was a hypocrite when it came to XRP and Ripple, and I can admit that now in hindsight. It's really interesting to learn what you, and it's also really interesting just to philosophically think about what is decentralization, like what is it really. We don't really, I don't think we've seen a full level of it, like decentralization, enough to be able to compare it against the centralization and say, yes, this is it. I don't it's one of those things I think we're searching for, but we haven't exactly found. Because as I got involved in crypto, I would go and check out communities, and I'd realize that it was decentralized by distributing the network, but it was very centralized by a small group of people. And Bitcoin's a good example of that, because the core development team decides the fate for the entirety of Bitcoin for the most part. It's a little bit of miners.
There's a lot of different aspects to it, and I've done some videos breaking down Andreas's arguments about it, and he likes to present this false paradigm of, well, it's Visa or it's Bitcoin. Which one do you want? I'm like, no, there's a spectrum. In Bitcoin, you have the developers kind of dictating where the network goes. You have very good decentralization when it comes to the 10,000 nodes all around the world, keeping track of the database. But when it comes to the actual miners, that's centralized in China, and it's under one jurisdiction. And I've described how they could, set up short positions and coordinate an attack and do a double spend on Bitcoin and make a lot of money in the process. I don't know that they'd want to do that, but it's certainly possible. And I think we need to evolve people's understanding of all the characteristics that play into decentralization, because what we're getting now is just this binary, it's Bitcoin or it's a shit coin.
No, you're right. You're totally right. And when you said what you said about Andreas, some of the things, I do respect a lot of what Andreas has done. I've had a chance to interview him as well. Great dude. But here's what I'm thinking, like, just saying this out loud, not saying that this is like factual information, but Blockstream and other entities have done a really good job at doing smear campaigns on projects and people. And what they did to someone like Roger Ver by, I think, paying.
Oh, we lost you.
Yeah, I could hear. I'm sorry, I can't avoid it.
That's okay.
But he was apparently, he was he was Bitcoin Jesus, and then all of a sudden it got flipped over to Bitcoin Judas because he didn't believe that the direction that Bitcoin was headed was a direction that Satoshi Nakamoto wanted, and that's when he jumped onto the Bitcoin Cash train,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was a smear campaign. And now I'm kind of thinking maybe the same thing was going on in a sense with some of the FUD kind of coming out about what Ripple and XRP is, and then it makes me question a lot of things. It also makes me wonder if someone like Andreas is getting paid by entities like blockchain to purposely not promote things like XRP, because as smart as Andreas is, and him at least understanding the value of what he sees in Ethereum, he's not saying the same thing at all for XRP or Ripple. I've not seen him say anything positive.
Yeah.
Mistaken.
Yeah. Now, Tone Vase, I would say 100%. He's getting money to shit on XRP. Don't doubt that at all. Andreas, he may just be so vested in it. Like in the first video, I took one of his speeches that he gave at a big meetup or something, and he talks about what would have to happen for something to come along and replace Bitcoin. And he's like, well, you'd have to have a fracturing of the community, and that hasn't happened. I'm like, what are you talking about? Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, those are fracturings of the community for exactly the reasons you just talked about. It wasn't performing. You'd have to, he goes through this list, and he's like blind to everything that's happened in the Bitcoin ecosystem and why we have all of these other cryptos and things that have spun off, Ethereum included. I just think he's, there's that saying, it's hard to get someone to understand something when their paycheck depends on them not understanding it. I think he's just so bought into his position that he's blinding himself to some of the realities.
And that's a good point. And this is obviously all just speculative. I'm just, talking out my butt, sitting here saying things, thinking things that, because it's interesting for me to be on my crypto journey. And I really was kind of feeling a little butthurt when the XRP community was telling me I wasn't educated, that I've been involved in cryptocurrency, and I don't know squat. That kind of bothered me for a second, but it made me realize everything I've been saying. There's nothing wrong with somebody admitting that something that they thought was to be true to not be true, and based off receiving new information. That doesn't make you a bad person. I think it makes us the best people we can possibly be by admitting our faults and moving forward.
Yeah, I talk about with my audience in this space, you have to be willing to throw everything out when you get new evidence that conflicts with your worldview. Cognitive dissonance is what it's called, when people just shut down and refuse to look at the new information. I think you have to be willing to throw everything out, bring in that new information, and then start pulling back pieces to see what still fits and what doesn't, and should be rejected. That's what you have to do. And I've done it several times where I've just been completely wrong about things that, this, that, and the other thing. And that's how you get to, I guess, the best truth or the best answer.
Yeah. I just encourage people. I call myself an open-minded skeptic, so I have to be open-minded. I can't sit here and continue to be closed-minded. And I just encourage people to do the same. So, Sam, before we wrap it up, is there any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share with everybody who's watching?
No, that's it. I think we covered some good ground. This was an enjoyable discussion.
Yeah, no, likewise. And I definitely think that we need to do this again. I would love to have a 100% better sound next time. And I would love to be able to kind of dig into this a little bit more. Now that I have some more information you provided to me, I feel a lot better investing my time actually researching more about what XRP and Ripple is doing, so I can try to provide value in that element as well. I just don't like to invest my time, because you know how valuable our time is, without knowing I'm investing in something that's worth doing. I hate going down a rabbit hole and realizing I need to dig back real quick.
There's a bonfire, a guy that goes by Bonfire Guy on YouTube that is a big time Q follower and an XRP follower. And he kind of merges the two together and does kind of a really good big picture of kind of what's happening. You might enjoy some of his content. So there's one thing the XRP community has no shortage of is good researchers. So we've looked under pretty much every stone, turned everything upside down to look for references and connections, and there's a lot of them. So,
well, dude, again, man, I can't thank you enough. I hope that everybody enjoyed this stream. I encourage people, if they're not already subscribed to your channel, to go check it out. Again, links are down below, and you can search in the search bar To The Lifeboats. If this is your first time ever watching any of my content and you were one of those people in the XRP community that was hating on me, if you like what we talked about in today's video, explore my channel. If you like what I'm doing, you can support me by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing. I do encourage people to check out my Patreon channel. I post up exclusive content, and it's a way to support what I do directly. In addition to that, I also encourage people to check out my brand new exclusive audio podcast on anchor.fm at Rice Radio. And you can find that on every major podcasting platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more at Rice Radio. And I thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. And as always, I encourage you to be the change by practicing